Ladies and gentlemen, we are back at it again, and it's time for us to revisit a tier list that has had its ups and its downs. The value tier list from Prydwen, ladies and gentlemen, for... well, I assume that's the 3.5 patch. And this is a tier list that I think we didn't look at last update for the Cyberpunk collab and Lucilla, but we're looking back at it again now that the meta has shifted, Soy Soy's released, Yang Yang's in the game, and so on and so forth. And we're also getting ready for Cheng Zhao and Jing Ran in 3.6. And so what I wanted to do today was, of course, take a look at the overall placements of the characters, the changelog, what has really shifted since that last update, and of course, give our takes for where the various units have landed. And this tier list is going to be available for both game modes as well, so do keep that in mind. We're going to have to be looking at everything from Yang Yang Xuanling onwards. So this July 10th date, we're going to be taking a look at this one, and then of course the July 30th one. Yang Yang added as a tier 0 DPS. Remember what the value tier list is here for. It's made to show you what are some of the strongest units in the context of them maybe not being that expensive, you not needing to invest that much into them, maybe 4-star units, right? And free supports versus having all of their premium units, they can still get the job done well. And this is where she's going to go, tier 0. That's because she is the best free-to-play DPS in the game. And I can see where they're coming from over here. Her base damage is so ludicrously high that she matches Luke's free-to-play team in power while barely trying. Rebecca and Verena are two very strong free meta contenders that don't rely on their signatures. They want variation, and of course Verena doesn't have a signature, right? They want variation, and then they want static mist to function really well. This great low-cost performance is paired with an easily improvable ceiling by getting units like Soy Soy. I don't really recommend Chisa at this point because you can probably just use Rebecca Soy Soy instead, and then you could save Chisa for other teams. But if you really want the strongest Yang Yang Xuanling team possible, you play her with Chisa right now. In TOA, Yang Yang holds all the value you would want from a main DPS, and she's the most valuable DPS released to date, I would say just in TOA. This is where I think the script kind of switches. This unit sucks ass in Whimpering Wastes. I have not been able to get her working in that game mode at all, and I don't know, honestly, who's worse in WuWa, her or Luke Curson. She's probably higher ranked because she could just go with Frolova to get clears, but that's Frolova doing all the work, not her. Now, Electro Rover, added as a tier 4 hybrid. This unit is free. Remember what the value tier list is. It's rating characters based on how much they cost. This unit is free and they're tier 4. This is basically a sign telling every person ever, do not build them or invest in them at the present time because they're fucking useless. Because, remember, them being free alone should give them a default rating. But they're so bad they're still at the bottom. Wait for Scene. They'll probably be decent then. And now we got Chisa getting bumped up from tier 0.5 to tier 0. And I think the main reason for this is simply due to the fact that she now has like a low budget sub DPS role. In that, a Chisa with no weapon will just be a good Yang Yang sub DPS. And while she will feel like she easily falls behind units like Soy Soy or Arrow Rover without her signature, as a sub DPS without her signature, right, she's actually pretty good. It's on her other teams where her lack of sig does really come to the forefront because she's kind of meant to deal damage and buff the team at the same time. But if she's with Yang Yang Xuanling and Soy Soy, not so much. There are like some other reasons for that naturally. It's because she has really good teams that she's on right now with Cardathea and of course Imeth Fusion Burst. And I would just dare say, because she has a role with basically every single negative status, either the first best option or the second best, well, tier 0 does make sense. However, she only has one use in End State Matrix and all these roles across all the teams, and I really do think that that one use is enough to really consider heavily where you're placing her. And that's what another reason why you wouldn't want her on Yang Yang Xuanling tanks. Now, Rebecca. And this is what I'm very happy to see. Rebecca's getting bumped up from tier 1 to tier 0.5. And that's because Yang Yang Xuanling is so damn good with her. And that's the main reason for it. Now, last change that we're going to be looking at is Soy Soy added as a tier 0 support in TOA. And I think the reasoning for that is pretty clear because she's extremely strong, but then also has general supportive abilities. But I think she's maybe a bit closer to tier 0.5 for now. I wouldn't rate her as high. So with that in mind, let's now take a look at the entire value tier list and where everybody is placed, because some people were not familiar with this. There's a lot of units placed a lot higher here, while there are a lot more units in some worse categories down here. So let's take a look at the DPSs first. All right, so up first, we're going to have Imeth, Luke Herson, and Yang Yang Zhuan Ling. This is my personal take regarding where I'm seeing Imeth. I think Imeth and Hiyuki are kind of like at the same level in terms of like value for free-to-play characters, because this is kind of like the unfortunate reality for both of them. They kind of both have 2 supports, 2 sub DPSs, and like 2 teams. Where Imeth has her Fusion Burst team, where she's with Chisa and Denya, and then she also has the Toon Rupture team, right? Where she's going to be with Mornier and Linné. But then you have Hiyuki over here, who also has top-performing teams, where she also has, like, Chisa, Linné, Lucilla, or, like, Soy Soy, Linné, Lucilla. And it's kind of like the same sort of situation to me. You get some really, really, really good results with both characters. So to kind of say Hiyuki in tier 1, and then Imeth in tier 0 to me is, like, I personally think Hiyuki is just better overall in, like, both game modes, and is, like, you kind of, like, have the same price to build her as you do Imeth. So, if anything, I think both of them could be dropped down to tier 0.5. Like, I think Hiyuki goes up to tier 0.5, and then Imeth drops down to tier 0.5, and we're good. Because this is my take. Imeth is kind of expensive. You don't have free-to-play teammates for Imeth. She doesn't, right? Like, what, you gonna use a fucking John, Shin, or Verena? Hell no. Like, you don't ever see that shit. She's always got a Mornier, she's always got a Linné, or a Chisa, or a Denya with her, bro. Or a Lupa. And so it's like, I really see tier 0.5 as, like, a safe spot for both of them. And then maybe Lucy drops down because I don't really think Lucy belongs in tier 0.5. Yeah, she's very weapon reliant. Oh, both Imeth and Hiyuki, if they have their teammates, they don't need their weapons either. So, yeah, I don't know. I think that Hiyuki's way too low here and Imeth is too high, especially when these are like the hobo use 4-star characters with them. She doesn't have that free-to-play potential. Now we got Linné. And I guess this is sort of the reality of Linné right now. Linné, to me, looks like mainly a Imeth and a Lucilla Merchant. But she still does really well with both of them. So, yeah, who is her competition at the moment? Or, sorry, Hiyuki, not Lucilla. So, I would say the main thing over here is that she's still relatively unrivaled as a best-in-slot for 2 of the best DPSs in the game, and then still has that general supportive ability that Rebecca's probably the closest one that comes when it comes to general supportive ability, but, like, it's still not as good as Linné's. So, I think that's fair. And now the support side. This is my take. I don't think that there's actually... Ooh, Monofusion, I guess, is why Mornier... If Monofusion was not in the game, I think Linné is tier 0.5. But as long as Monofusion is in the game and Linné can just go with Lupa, or sorry, Mornier can just go with Lupa, I think that's fine. However, I think Soy Soy needs to be bumped down. I think Soy Soy actually probably does need to be bumped down to 0.5. And the main reasoning for this is I don't think she's actually that good, except for, like, just with Hiyuki. That's my personal take. I feel like with Hiyuki, Soy Soy is, like, the best unit ever. But right now, she's an easy skip until Scene comes out. And then she has, like, more teams and stuff like that. I don't think Soy Soy is, like, a tier 0. Like, oh, you're gonna get a lot of value out of pulling her. I think you get a lot of value if you have Hiyuki specifically. And that's kind of, like, mainly it. Not good with Fusion Burst, not good with Spectral Frazzle or any of that, right? Not good with Phoebe in those regards. Maybe when Scene comes out, and then she has a free-to-play team with E, Rover, and Scene, yes, I can 100% see her being tier 0, right? Because the team's going to be Soy Soy, E, Rover, and then Scene. And then that's a budget team, right? That's probably going to be giga-fucking strong because the Sentinel team always has to be giga-fucking strong, right? And then I could see it coming back to tier 0 over here. But for now, this is a little suspicious to me, right? Like, I'm not sure how I feel about this one. All right, now tier 0.5. I just think Hiyuki and Imith should be here, and then Lucy should probably... I don't even know if she should be on this tier list because you can't even pull her as a character anymore. I don't really know. Yeah. And I don't think she's tier 0.5 at all because she's so weapon reliant because her weapon is so strong. Sigrika, on the other hand, though, I think Sigrika's always going to be a strong character because her current best-in-slot support is Shorekeeper, right? And when she's able to use units like Shorekeeper or Chuyan, who are so high value in other teams, Sigrika's just like a good connecting piece because she can also use Lucilla as well. She just ends up using some of like the top teams overall in the game, and obviously, she's also one of the best WuWa characters. So, like... you kind of get what's going on, right? Bad in WuWa, bad in WuWa, bad in WuWa outside of Fusion Burst, which requires a triple premium team, and then good in all the game modes with just a Chuyan, right? And then that's kind of like her. If anything, I could see Sigrika maybe being bumped up in the future if you made like an aggregate tier list because, yeah, she's tier 0 in WuWa. Now, sub DPSs. Denya. I think with another Toon Strain character in the game, like Ching Zhao, this unit probably just goes up to tier 0. Then you got Chuyan, with Lucilla below him at tier 1. And I think this is kind of like the case of why Lucilla's here. Lucilla's Echo mode sucks. I'm sorry, it's not good. And the main reason why it's not good is because it has no Sonata set that really works with it well. You're actually non-sarcastically told to use Moonlit Clouds on the character when, like... why would you do that when Moonlit Clouds gives a passive ER bonus, right? You kind of get what's going on. Her Echo form literally feels underbaked. Completely underbaked, right? And this is also the other thing. She's a Rectifier user. Are the Rectifiers in this game good, or are they pretty shit? She's very Sig reliant because she's a Rectifier user. What can Chuyan use instead? Oh, right, he's a Sword user. He can just use EOG. So that already kind of bricks it right off the bat, right? Now, you're probably already beginning to see why he's higher now, right? And so Denya has some of the best teams in the game, right? And so once Ching Zhao comes out, I feel like Denya's going to be in a pretty higher spot too. But now Rebecca. I think Rebecca's probably going to stay here at the moment. She did get bumped up, but I think Yang Yang Zhuanling's probably going to be one of the last characters that she ends up working for. I don't really think that like Jing Ran and stuff like that are going to have too much synergy down here. Now we're going to have no characters in tier 0.5 through support, so we'll just move on. And now we got tier 1. Yeah, I don't know what this unit is doing over here. I think she needs to be so much more higher. It's almost criminal. Cardathea, I think, is fine down here. I don't think that's much of an issue because she is kind of just not that strong anymore. Unless you're going to be quick swapping. And then Augusta. Man, is Augusta more Teffy? Well, I guess this is the thing, right? Instead of Augusta Mortefi, you could be playing Yang Yang Mortefi. That's a fair thing to say, and Yang Yang's easier to gear with EOG. Do you get what I'm saying? Right? It's not even a basis of, like, Yang Yang Mortefi even being stronger. Yang Yang Mortefi is just also an acceptable level of strength, and is simply easier to gear. And so, I cannot, with any confidence, tell somebody to build Augusta over Yang Yang in 2026, because Yang Yang has, like, a free weapon, basically. So she's cheaper than Augusta is going to work a lot better as a result. Do you get what's going on here? Like in a lot of ways, characters on this value tier list are bumped down just because others are more valuable than them or get stuff done, get the same thing done at a lower price. And if somebody does what you do at a cheaper price, then that is on the value tier list, right? Going to knock your ranking down. So I think that makes sense. For Lova, her teammates are expensive and her performance isn't high enough in the TOA for her to be any higher. So I think that's fine. And then Lupa. Monofusion as a whole requires a lot of premium units. And I think this is just reflecting the number of premium units that you actually do need to make Monofusion work properly. And if there were more free-to-play options, I think this would be a different case. But like, you got Encore. Nah, not really, bro. And then Arrow Rover. They're free. You already know. And now in tier 1.5. I think the reason for a lot of these characters being in this tier is because for the team that you would play them on, is there a better choice? Carlotta's best team, for example, right, features Mornier and Lene. Would it be better if you just played Imith there? Yes. Galbrena's best team is Monofusion. Would Monofusion be better if you just put Imith there? Or Jing Ran? Probably, right? Probably, yes. You know, her best team is Mornier Linné. Her best team is Mornier Linné as a DPS. It's better to just put Imeth there, right? And Phoebe, bro, she's just, you already know she just doesn't do that much damage. It's kind of obvious what's happening, right? A lot of these units are simply being bumped down because their best in slot team has like a better unit that can go into it that's probably just going to be stronger. And now you got characters though near at the bottom, and this is simply due to the fact that they're just like losing some synergies. I think that Mortefi could go up. I'm gonna be real with you here. I don't know why he's tier 1.5. I feel like he could actually go up to like tier 1 easy, or maybe tier 0.5 easy because he's a 4-star fucking unit. Yuno and Chikona, though, I think are in a good spot relatively because who are they working with? Augusta and Cart down here. I don't think anyone finds that too surprising. And Sanhua? Well, I guess technically you got... I think her and Mortefi could maybe be bumped up. Who knows? And then you got Spectro Rover. And now in tier 2, you got Zani, Jian, and Jinsei. I guess that's actually not wrong. I don't know if Jinsei is worth a tier 2 because Jian is currently the only 1.x DPS I could actually clear Hazard for. And I mean this in like the most legitimate sense. I think he's the only one that can clear Hazard for. And like Chang Li actually can't do it anymore. I tested it. He's the only 1.x DPS that can clear. And I think that means he should hold the highest position. I don't think Jinsei's at his level because he's the only one that has teams that can clear. That's it, right? So if he's the only one, I think he's got to be the most valuable because he's able to do the most and has had the longest longevity out of all the 1.x units. So yeah, basically say bump this bitch down. All right, and as we're getting to the bottom, I think what's very obvious down here is that these are either 4-star units or they're ones that have simply not really withstood the test of time with other teammates taking up and being a lot more valuable than them. For Lova, for example, pulling a Chuyan is a lot more valuable. Chang Li, for example, pulling any fusion DPS is a lot more valuable. Brant, for example, Mornier is simply going to be a more generally usable character. So I will always recommend somebody pulls Mornier over a Brant nowadays. And I think if you apply that reasoning of, instead of pulling this character, would another one actually benefit your account more? Then you begin to see that these placements all make a good amount of sense. Because there's kind of just more generally acceptable options nowadays for most units. Now let's take a look at Whimpering Wastes. And of course, before we do that, we're going to do a brief look at the changelog. Soy Soy, tier 0.5 in WuWa. Interesting. And then Yang Yang added as tier 0. I will still not budge on this. I think this is completely fucking wrong. And then Chisa's actually bumping up as well with the expert tag removed. And then Rebecca's bumping up. And then Rover's added as a tier 0 hybrid or tier 4 hybrid. So this is going to be my take on Whimpering. I don't see where her tier 0 performance is coming from. I have still to this day, unless Frolova is carrying this unit's ass, and then it's Frolova doing everything, I have never gotten anything close to tier 0 with this character. My cheeks get clapped at such a high rate, it's fucking unreal trying to get good scores when I'm like running a soy like fucking like Chisa Yang Yang team, bro. Like legitimately my scores are ass. They're so bad it's crazy. When I use these two characters though, it's nuts. And when I use this character, bro, I get 3.5k on purple tokens while picking my nose playing this character. I feel like she's severely underrated both here and on the TOA. Like, bro, I think she's an easy tier 0.5 in everywhere. I have never had so much consistency using a unit before because she freezes everybody. They can't move. You land everything. And obviously, I think Kuro, I think Prydwen also sandbags her placement in the regular WuWa tier. She's a tier 0.5 in the regular list. She's been a tier 0 for me since release. I have gotten nothing except tier 0 results with this unit since release. Again, I think she's tier 0.5 minimum because she has expensive teammates. And this bitch, bro, she's in like tier 1.5 or tier 1 in WuWa, bro. Like, wherever Luke Hurston is, put her in tier 2. I'm just being real. Put her in tier 2, bro. Or she needs an expert tag. Or a partner tag. Fuck it. Put partner for Lova. Bro, you've seen all my first impressions. You've seen me try to play this character. People are telling me the most fucked up rotations known to man. One person was telling me to like quick swap a Frolova Yang Yang, where you're like doing a triple feather rotation while you're like setting up Yang Yang's basic attacks while Frolova's on field. Bro, that's a partner plus expert tag. And that's enough to bump a character down multiple places. Sorry. It's just, I still don't see it to this day. Now let's take a look at some of the other characters. Chuyan, easy tier 0. Why? He works with the best units in the game. Lucilla should be tier 0. I'm sorry. If Lucilla's going to be usable with Sigrika and Hiyuki, 2 of the best Whimpering Wastes characters in the game, I think she's a tier 0 in WuWa. If Chuyan working with Frolova and Sigrika is enough, her working with Sigrika and Lucilla is enough for me for a tier 0. Oh, and Frolova too. Yeah, and Frolova too, sorry. Because Lucilla and Hiyuki is really good, guys. And now Rebecca. I don't think so. No, no, no. This character, it feels like she's the opposite of WuWa. I have never seen a unit where it feels like I am ungrouping harder than this one. Bro, like, I swear to God, she's like, if you just put her on your team, the WuWa mobs, they start ungrouping more. I hate playing her in that game mode. It's crazy. And now tier 0.5. Man, this is kind of wild. This is kind of nuts. I think this is fair placement, actually. Tier 0.5 for everybody. Because kind of like the end result is that Chisa, for example, is the best in slot on the tier 0 Imith team. But then Soy Soy is the best in slot on the tier 0 Hiyuki team. But then Shorekeeper is the best in slot on the tier 0 Sigrika team. You get what's going on, or I guess Chikona technically is, right? But then Shorekeeper still gets you good scores. It's just confusing. And they all kind of support like a solid team on their own. So like, I guess the only one that deserves to be dropped down is maybe Shorekeeper. I could see Shorekeeper dropping down to tier 1 because she's just slow compared to everybody else. Yeah, I think she's just slow. And none of her best teams show up here. Yeah, they just don't. And now tier 1. Hiyuki being here is malpractice. I think Augusta being here is okay because, again... Augusta's way better than Yang Yang, though. I don't know about that. Yeah. Well, if Yang Yang's going down to tier 2, then yeah, Augusta can be in tier 1, no problem. Then you got Denya here. I think Denya bumps up when a DPS that isn't Luke Herson, that's Toon Strain, enters the game. Lene Hiyuki is way worse than Lucilla, and Lene's never going with Imith in this game mode, and we don't really have a good Liberation DPS for WuWa, so if anything, I think she could drop lower. I'm just being fair with you. I think Lene could drop lower on here. And then Lupa, yeah, we got Mono Fusion still. And then Galbrain is down here because you'd rather use Imith. Okay. All right. You don't really technically need Cantarella, but you will use her in Whimpering Wastes. And then Mornier is going to be down. You know what? If Mornier is going to be down here, we can bump down Shorekeeper. Because if the argument is Mornier doesn't have a lot of top teams, and that's why she's here, what does this bitch have? Mornier should be up there? No, up there? Well, you got Toon Rupture Imith and Toon Strain Luke as Mornier's teams. And then Mono Fusion as a whole. Maybe her and Shorekeeper could share tier 1. I don't know. I guess the main thing is Shorekeeper needs to be bumped down here. And now we got the niche characters. Yeah, these characters are all just not that good in Whimpering Wastes. Yeah. Just in terms of modern-wise, what you would use Sigrika instead of this guy. I think this is fair. Because WuWa is probably the worst balanced game mode. And I can safely say, when you look at who you're running and the teams that you historically do run, right? Your WuWa runs don't feel good unless you're using a unit like her, maybe like her, that's it. And then all the other characters don't particularly feel very good to use at all. And I think most people can agree with that. Unless you're using like some of these guys, God forbid you're using Yang Yang, right? I feel like you're just not having a fun one. And so I think the value tier list is almost more important for this side because there are so many characters that just don't do well in this game mode. And I guess kind of like as a full summary, I'll tell you this. I think Hiyuki's placement over here as being just tier 1 in both game modes is kind of really rough for her because she's one of the only characters in the game that feels like they excel on just one build with one team in both game modes. If you just build the Soy Soy, Lucilla, Hiyuki team, you are set for TOA. You are set for WuWa. You are set for Whimpering Wastes forever. 2 uses in end state as well, so you're covered there too. This is the top recommended team I can tell anybody in this game to pull. Because it has comfort, it's got the damage, it's got the fluidity, all of that. And it's tier 0 easily in both game modes. But then I'm seeing it as a tier 1 on both lists. And it's kind of like, oh, the recommendations that you pull other characters over them. This would be the first team I tell any person to complete. If there was a new WuWa player anywhere, this would be the #1 team I tell them to make. And I guess that's the direct opposite of what I'm seeing on the tier list. But I'm saying this as a player, right, that's doing every endgame, every reset, all the stuff for Asteroid. This is like the new Carlotta team. This is the new Carlotta team. And I would recommend every person in this game pulls this one. And unfortunately, that thought is not reflected on this tier list over here. And that to me is a big miss, because I think this is truly the best team in the game. And to see it see her this far on both, after what I've experienced playing this character, that's the biggest disagreement that I'll have over here. But hopefully you guys can agree with that. And of course, right, I do agree with the majority of what's on this tier list. But that's the main big thing. That'll be it for this one, ladies and gentlemen. Our coverage of Prydwen's Value tier list. Peace out. See you next time.